The last time I checked, there were like over 600,000 wildcards played. First question for you guys is, Ben, do you think it's the right time to play the wildcard?
I think for the majority of people, no. I think people are kind of wildcarding because they're bored and it's an international break. I think the best time to wildcard is a bit further on into the season, because obviously when you're wildcarding, you have to be aware that you can't then make loads of changes to your team until at least December minimum, unless you're using other chips and that sort of thing. So you got to bear that in mind and be ready to take -4s and -8s hits, which is a risk. So I think unless your team's absolutely decimated and you can't even field an 11, I think you probably should stick to, not hitting that wild card just yet.
How about you, Josh? The best time, or do you prefer waiting a bit?
I do prefer waiting a bit personally, but I think there are a lot of reasons this week why a lot of people have hit it, especially with the whole isolation type thing with those Brazilian players. Like Ben said, your team could generally be like not even an 11 if you've got a few of those. And yeah, I think a lot of people are just interested with the new players that have come into the game. Obviously, we didn't have Lukaku, we didn't have Ronaldo at the start of the game. So those guys coming in, I think people are just trying to hop on them, but there are ways you can go about that without having to use your wild card as well.
Okay, and so Ben, my next question is, when did you play a wild card last season, the first wild card?
Last season, I believe it was the second international break, I think.
So that's around the game week 7 or something. It was different because obviously last season was a bit different, started in September and stuff. How about you, Joe?
I think I was in the earlier. I think I was again the first international break. I'm not sure, but it's about game week 4, game week 5. I know it's a lot earlier than I planned to play it this season, but in comparison, last season I didn't start very well. I had a good game week 1, but it went downhill from there. So this season it's a little bit opposite, where I've actually started well, so I haven't really had to make any changes to my team.
Awesome. So let's get to the game week 4 fixtures. So we have Crystal Palace against Spurs, Arsenal against Norwich, Brentford against Brighton, City traveling to Leicester, United, I'm pretty sure Josh is buzzing for this game, hosting Newcastle, Southampton against West Ham, Watford facing a goalless and a pointless Wolves. They should really have had a goal by now, really. Chelsea against Villa, and then the only game on Sunday, it's Leeds against Liverpool, and then on Monday we have Everton against Burnley. So for the guys who have played their wildcards, we'll start with you, Ben. Let's try and help them. Which goalkeeper do you think they should be targeting on their wildcard?
I'm going to back the boy I've been backing since the start of the season, and I'm going to go for Meslier of Leeds. Now, I know that the Liverpool fixture probably isn't the best fixture to start your wildcard off, but I think Leeds' defence will improve tremendously with their fantastic fixtures that they got coming up, and with the very, very high ceiling of Meslier as a keeper. I think he's one to have in. I mean, last season he averaged like 5 saves a game, which, is nearly 2 extra points per game from Meslier on his own. So if he's averaging, only conceding 1 maybe and then getting 2 save points, you're still getting 4 points out of that. So I'd say Meslier is the one for me.
Okay, Josh, I remember we disagreed on this in game week 1 with Schmeichel and Meslier. Are you sticking to Meslier?
Yeah, I think it was always a long-term thing with Meslier. We already knew that he had Liverpool and Man United in his first 4. I thought he was unlucky not to keep a clean sheet against Burnley. The goal he conceded wasn't really his fault. It was just one of those where it's just a scruffy Burnley goal. They always happen. But yeah, I'd stick to Meslier for me personally. But another option I'd go down the route of looking at is David De Gea at 5 million as well. Henderson's still trying to come back from that long-term COVID. I think he's almost certain in that team at the minute. He looked great against Wolves, making that double save. Also, United defensively, I think with Varane in there, they just looked so much more reassured and just composed. And I think we'll see a lot of clean sheets out of this United team with him in that team.
Awesome. So we'll start with you on the next one, Josh. What about defenders? Which defenders are you targeting if you're playing a wildcard?
I mean, Trent's a no-brainer. He always is. He always will be. I'd look towards Luke Shaw as well. Obviously, Ronaldo scored a good chunk of his goals last season in Serie A from headed opportunities. He's just an absolute weapon in the air. And Luke Shaw is on indirect free kicks, some corners, and obviously he gets a lot of in-play crosses in as well. So he'd be on there. I'd look at Reece James, probably not in the wild card, but again, it's one of those sticky ones where I wouldn't really want him right now. I'd want him in game week 7, but he'd definitely be on my radar. Cheaper options, I'd definitely be looking at Ben White at 4.4, potentially even 4.3. It's just an absolute steal. A lot of people are overreacting to this Arsenal team. They faced Man City and Chelsea, who were the Champions League finalists last season, in their first 3 games. Obviously, the Brentford game wasn't a great result, but you're going to have those anomalies. It's just one of those things where it's happened 3 game weeks in a row. If that was spread out with a couple of draws and wins in between, it wouldn't look as bad. So yeah, I'd back in Arsenal to come back, and they've got a nice run of games. Also, I'd look towards maybe someone like a Wolves defender as well. I'll let Ben talk about those ones though.
Before he talks about Wolves defenders, Ben, are you also interested in this team? A couple of defenders from this team?
I've still got Ben White in this team. Somehow he's still in, but no, I think with Arsenal they've got a lot of players coming back. They've obviously spent a lot of money, so it's going to take time for them to gel in. But with their fixture run, I think it's the perfect time now for them to sort of gel in together and become a lot more cohesive. I've got Ben White in, although his ceiling's not very high, it's a high probability for them to start keeping clean sheets. They're the most likely team this week to keep a clean sheet at 53%. So I like Ben White as a pick. And if you're on Wildcard and he drops even further, I think you probably got to get him in at 4.3.
And then about the Wolves defenders, any Wolves defenders as Josh said?
Yeah, I like the Wolves defenders in general. I mean, you could almost take your pick about which one you wanted. They've all got upside. You look at Connor Cody, he's probably the most nailed in that Wolves defence at 4.5. You got Semedo at 4.9 if you want to go a bit more attacking. Obviously, someone like Saiss has got that attacking threat going forwards with his head. He scored a lot of goals with headers. So yeah, there's a few really good options for Wolves. With their fixtures especially, I really like them. In terms of like other players I'd look at, I'd definitely, in fact, look to have a Chelsea defender in, whether that be Christensen at 5 million. I think, Josh really likes him as an asset. They're a little bit on the more expensive side, but they're not conceding goals. Even against the better teams, they're not conceding. So I would, like to look at one of them. Maybe even if you're brave enough, someone like Reece James. I know he's out for the Villa game, but after that, he's the guy with the most attacking threat in that Chelsea defence.
It's funny you say that because I'm just watching the Germany game and Rudiger scored from a free kick as well, a header. So, Josh, do you think Rudiger's a good option? Because usually he's too rough, man. I usually find him too rough, too rugged, yellow cards all over the place.
Yeah, you're going to get that with him, but I think one thing you do get with him is that he's absolutely nailed. Like, I don't see it, like with Christensen, Thiago Silva could come into that spot and play, whereas with Rudiger, I don't really see a replacement for him. He's been dominated onto that left-hand side, especially with Kurt Zouma now off to West Ham. It makes him a lot more nailed, so it's almost worth paying the 0.5 more. But again, like Ben mentioned, for 0.5 more, you get Reece James, and a little bit more than that, you can get Ben Chilwell if he comes back into the fold.
Awesome. Next up, let's go to the midfielders. Ben, you're up first on this one. 2 or 3 defenders you should be targeting if you're playing your wildcard.
So the 2 or 3 that I'd be targeting, I mean, you'd want to have Mo Salah in there to begin with. I think he's the most consistent premium asset, and he's the one that should be on mainstay, and then you should be rotating other assets around him in terms of premiums. I think he should be the one that should be in. In terms of the other 2, I'd probably look to his teammate for the foreseeable future in Diogo Jota. He's almost got better stats, better expected goal involvements than Mo Salah this season. And if he gets the minutes, which he should do because of Firmino's injury, he should be playing up front in an almost starring role for Liverpool. Will get off more shots than Salah would when he's playing out wide, and potentially more goal involvements. And the other guy that I'd look at is a man that a lot of people have kind of transferred out today, and that's Rafinha. I think a lot of people kind of transferring him out because he can't play against Liverpool, but realistically, if you're owning him, you're not playing him against Liverpool. You're probably putting him on the bench. You're probably putting in someone like Ben White, who's more likely to get some sort of return. And the fixtures that Leeds have got coming up are ridiculously good. I mean, they've got one of the best runs in the whole league for the next sort of 6 games. So those are the 3 midfielders I'd probably be targeting.
Awesome. And how about you, Josh?
Yeah, I totally agree with all three that Ben said. They are some great picks. For me, I'd be looking a little bit differential. I'll be going in, say, if you're getting like a Ronaldo or Lukaku into your team right now, you're going to be having to look at those cheaper and more budget midfielders. So at 6 million and below, I'll be looking at Ismail Assar. He's got a great run of fixtures in his next 4 game weeks. I expect at least a couple of returns out of him. He's a great player. We saw how good he was against Aston Villa. So against these more, let's say, leakier defences, I think we'll see a lot more returns from him. Equally, I think you could even look at a little bit cheaper. Maybe you look at Arsenal, Odegaard, Smith Rowe if you really fancied it. They, again, have a nice run of games. I'd be looking at more so fixture-wise for these sort of cheaper assets because they aren't going to return against your Man Cities, your Chelseas. They're going to be returning in these little one-off fixtures. So those two are definitely interesting ones to keep an eye on. Also, maybe looking at the likes of Mason Mount from... Maybe not necessarily right now, but I think looking forward when Chelsea's fixtures turn, he's always creating. He's probably the most creative player in that team, stats-wise, expected assists and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'd look at him at 7.5 million. He's a nice alternative to Jota, to Greenwood, if you're, say, tripled up on those teams already.
Awesome. So I've done content with the FPL Gorgeous for more than a year, and this is the most Josh has tipped Arsenal players. This is actually the most tipped Arsenal players. So that in itself is a surprise. To what Ben had said about Leeds fixtures, Liverpool next up, and they should really have won this fixture last season. Newcastle away, they won it. They have West Ham at home, Watford at home, Southampton away, Wolves at home, Norwich away. Some really good fixtures. Even the Leicester game at home, you expect them to score. Even Tottenham, where they could score like so many good fixtures until maybe even game week 16 and 17, where they played Chelsea and City. So Leeds obviously could do a Leeds and lose 5 of those games as usual. So we have to wait and see. Next up is the strikers. Josh, you're up fast. Which 3 strikers would you choose?
I think it goes without saying, Cristiano Ronaldo is definitely going to be coming into my team, I think, this week. Newcastle at home, even if he does play 30 minutes, which I highly doubt him not starting, to be honest. I don't see why he wouldn't start. He's already been training. He's there. He's fit. We've seen how he performed against Ireland. I think he's ready to go. So, yeah, he's straight in there. He's got a 70% chance of scoring if he does start against Newcastle. So it's written in the stars, really, isn't it? Back to Old Trafford, number 7, Ronaldo. It stinks of goals for me. I'd also look at maybe a little bit cheaper. I think Callum Wilson, equally, obviously United game isn't a great one, but he's been going under the radar a lot, as per usual. A lot of people just don't like him because of obviously the team he plays in, but stats-wise, he gets a lot of chances, and when he gets a chance, he usually does take it. So Callum Wilson would be a sort of a differential pick for me. And the third one that I'd be choosing right now is going to be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Against Burnley, I'm going to steal Ben's stat here that you mentioned earlier to me. They've conceded the most aerial chances against all the teams, which is surprising because it's not something you think about when you come into Burnley. You think they're aerially dominant. You think they defend crosses into the box really well, but it's the opposite. And Calvert-Lewin's going to thrive off that. Obviously, Richarlison can play as well. It's a Monday night fixture. So if you're looking for that cheeky little rank boost before the game weekends, DCL is going to be your man.
Some really good picks there. Ben, can you better that with 3 picks?
Probably not, but I'll give it a try. I'm going to try and go a bit different to what Josh has said. I'm going to pick my first guy as Romelu Lukaku. I think, for game week 4, the potential to play against Jed Steer in goal is something that's too good to not look at. And could he outscore Ronaldo? I think if Lukaku's fit and he plays, potentially could in that game week. I mean, he's looked absolutely lethal everywhere. Even on the international break, he was scoring goals. He was looking really, really good. So I fancy Romelu Lukaku. He's got a couple of tough fixtures coming up after that. But, he's the sort of player that would score against a Spurs or a Manchester City. And Chelsea looked dangerous against Liverpool away from home before they went down to 10 men. And then after that, their fixtures looked fantastic as well. My second player... I'll probably go Raul Jimenez for the fixtures. Again, Wolves, really nice fixtures coming up. And, Jimenez is going to be part of that. Here's a stat for you. So he is the only player to have had he's had the most shots in the league in the box behind Antonio. So Antonio's had the most shots in the league. Second place is Raul Jimenez. So his expected goal involvement is really, really high up there at the moment. And I think, it's about time Wolves scored. And if Wolves do score, it's generally through Raul Jimenez. And my third option, I'm going to go a bit, outside the box sort of pick, I'm going to go for Adam Armstrong as my pick. They've got a couple of tough fixtures coming up, but again, that fixture swing in game week 7 after the Chelsea game, they've got a really nice run, and he caused problems against the teams he played against. Even, Manchester United, he was causing problems. He looked good against Newcastle, obviously got that assist. Everton, he scored a goal, didn't he? So 2 returns in his opening 3 games against some really good opposition. I do fancy him to have a good season.
Oh, some really outfield picks there. Armstrong, a guy you'd know from the Championship again. Sorry, you had to mention the Championship again. He played very well last season. I think he scored more than 20 goals last season or something. And yes, Jimenez, I don't know about Jimenez. I usually feel like I'm playing with an injured player. I'm so sorry, but it doesn't feel like he's recovered 100%. It feels like I'm playing with an injured player. So I'll give him a couple of weeks till I get him in. But yeah, I understand the fixtures and the stats always.